Well, hello. This is the final boss, and I'm going to do a brief review of Brandon Sanderson's Defiant book. I just finished reading it. I enjoyed it. And yeah, I was going to talk about some of the writing things I learned, some of the things that came to mind during the reading process, and maybe some things I would have done differently or would maybe think are opportunities for improvement. But first and foremost, let's start with the good stuff. What went really well in this book? So, honestly, I think the ideas and the world building are always next level with Brandon Sanderson. They're just really cool concepts he's playing around with, really fun, engaging, just meat to the world. Like cool ideas getting explored in interesting ways and thought out really well. So props to him for that. That is classic Sanderson. I loved the fun team vibes, but it does get a bit much. Fun team, mixed bag. Where, obviously the team is a great group of people. They're a really engaging and fun, party to kind of go along with and joke around with. But there are times where I felt like that did start to impact the tone and adjust even the stakes of the story itself, which I'll talk about later. But other things that I thought were really awesome about this story was obviously the airplane battles. I mean, fighter battles, there's nothing that I will never not enjoy when there are planes zipping by, and exploding stuff. It's wonderful. So like the battles were super fun. Were really fun. And then lastly, honestly, the side characters. I thought the side characters were nice. They seemed a little bit better developed than they were in previous books. So well done. Well done on that. And there are my last two notes there. So, what do I think could have potentially been improved? Sadly, I think that this book had a few more opportunities for improvement than some of his previous works. I've actually thought this was a little bit fraught with issues in certain areas, especially around characters and tone. So when it came to like the main characters, there were lots of dumb decisions on like obvious issues, like Spensa, was baffled by Braid and she didn't need to be, like anybody with kind of half a brain felt like they could have kind of caught on with what Braid was doing, and just kind of this person is not super stable. Or like Spencer saying, "Oh, she's a great actor. She bamboozled me thoroughly." I just didn't buy that. It was so many of Braid's ploys were so clearly ploys that it just did not parse well. And because of these decisions, there was a little bit too much weight placed on interiority. And so what that means is like the characters are thinking, always talking about their rationales. And one of the reasons they have to do that is because it seemed like they were getting forced into unwise decisions that would drive the plot forward. But in order to get them to make those decisions and to not completely lose credibility as a character, it felt like we were spending an enormous amount of time in interiority and in bad parts of the story, like interiority in the middle of battle, thinking thinking mid battle. That was another kind of surprising problem where I was like, why are we like going on about why is Braid like this? She must be nice. Maybe she's really a good person, whatever that may be. A lot of that interior thought can happen in battle, and especially the logicking out should be avoided from having it in a dramatic scene. That's usually going to be a way to drain drama. You know, interiority is always pausing what's going on, going off on a tangent, and then coming back to the scene. That can work, but it comes at a price. It comes at a steep price, and I think that price was paid a little too much too often, and it impacted the readability and the fun that I think this book had on its side. And that is another thing. You know what? I do want to make sure this book was just good fun. You know, it did have just the good fun vibes. So, you know, don't get me wrong. You know, I might be a curmudgeon, but you know, only a minor curmudgeon. But anyways, I'll fix this so you can still see the thing that says good. There you go. But yeah, so those are some things I would think about if I was Sanderson. I would say, oh man, be cautious with some of these, some of the interiority. It definitely got a bit much, and it definitely was indicative that, you know, the writer did not believe that these characters would logically be making these choices, because so much time is spent in a character's thoughts, explaining what they're thinking, explaining why they're thinking it, explaining what they're doing and their reasoning for doing it. So that is a thing to be cautious of, is if the story is so complex or the decisions irrational that you need interiority, that is a flag. You know, the complexity of decisions, you know, complex decisions, you know, bad decisions, you know, forced, you know, too much thought. And I think that was also another thing that was pretty rough in terms of just like, oh, I don't know if I was able to connect with the story quite as much as I would have liked. But yeah, what are some of the other things that I think could have been improved? I think the interiority was a huge symptom, and it's something to watch out. I have to watch out for in my writing. You can read my old drafts. You know, I'm not knocking on this person. You can read my old drafts, and you will say, "Oh wow, Jeff, why is, you know, this main character stopping in the middle of a scene to you know, do something?" The only other thing that I thought was the tone really caused a lot of issues. And this came in a few forms, right? Like, the team conflict never felt real. So, you know, Spensa, in trying to, you know, express herself or whatever she's trying to do, and I'll space this out so it can be a little bit easier to see. The Spensa never felt realistic in her decision making, in terms of, do I really believe that she is going to go off on her own and everyone's going to be okay with, and little slight spoilers, you know, everyone's going to be okay with it, and, you know, okay, the people that aren't, are they really going to stay mad at her? Like, it's because the novel is trying to embody this fun romp, a lot of the stakes get immediately drained because we just know that you're not going to do it. And likewise, I never felt that any of the characters, the main characters, were in danger. Like, the plot armor was, you know, like, overshadowed everyone. And so I think that was another really big issue, where I never really believed that any of the characters that I cared about in danger. And the problem is that this was proved through the story, right? Where a random unnamed character would pop up and then kind of be like quirky and fun, and then they'd die. You know, and it was like, oh yeah, obviously that's not one of our main characters. You just kind of tried to make us like someone real fast so it would feel like we have stakes in the story. It didn't quite accomplish that, unfortunately. The last thing is, as much as I loved the battles and cool stuff like that, the scene dynamics felt a little overly complicated, and the battle dynamics felt a little overly complicated. So sometimes There was just so many play-by-plays of every single turn and every single thing and every single mechanic of the magic system, and this is like both magic and, action. It did start to degrade the tension in those battles. It made the goal of the reader just trying to follow what magic is happening here and who's going there over understanding the emotions at stake, what's going to happen next to these characters. And so it came across as not having much emotional impact. I felt that there was a lot of desire from the writer for me to feel for Braid, understand her journey, and the emotions just didn't deliver. And largely because we had lots of motive explanation. And so that's another issue too, right? Where we said, oh, hey, telling us exactly why you're doing something, telling us exactly why you're thinking of a certain thing is always going to come off a little bit on the nose. And even when we got to, aspects, and I try not to reveal too many spoilers, but aspects where the characters started really talking about what was really going on, by the time we got to that explanation, it did not feel believable because it was explained to us. We won't, we believe, and this is like show motive through action, not exposition. And I think that was another really big problem, is all the characters were just talking about why they're doing this certain thing over and over in interiority or to each other. Like, oh, I really shouldn't be doing this. I really want to be this. I really think I should be this. And so to some degree, that's showing me that you're potentially not trusting the reader to gather that from the action, right? So if a character is spending every night, writing, I know they want to be a writer. They don't need to tell me I really want to be a writer. If they're, abandoning social stuff and, not visiting friends because they want to be a writer, I know how important that motivation is to them. Explaining it is not going to be beneficial. So overall, my thoughts on this book, even though I enjoyed it because I'm a fan of space, it's probably a 6 out of 10. And so I still would finish the series. I enjoyed the series. I would still recommend it, but in terms of kind of some of the base pillars that I hoped that it would have to really perform as well as I had hoped, I think it did miss the mark a little bit. But overall, it's a fun idea with great stories, fun characters, and you're still going to enjoy it. Take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.